First, that big story that we are tracking. The night of 31st December and 1st January could have been a terrible night for the country. Reports now suggest that a possible terror bid was foiled by the Coast Guard on the Arabian Sea, about 365 kilometers off the Porbandar coast in Gujurat. Working on an intelligence tip-off that stated that a fishing boat from Bandar near Karachi was planning a transaction to the Arabian Sea, the Coast Guard undertook a sea and air coordinated approach. A Pakistani fishing vessel was intercepted. The vessel was warned and told to stop further investigation and was told to stop its movement. The crew members, though, chose to defy the maritime protocol. It led to a 60-minute hot pursuit along the high seas. 4 members were spotted in the boat who had hidden themselves in the compartment below the deck. They then set the boat on fire. This resulted in the explosion that you see on your cameras and a major fire on the boat. Now, Headlines today has exclusively accessed information of how the Coast Guard zeroed in on that Pakistani vessel, the NTRO intercepting wireless chatter from Karachi that mentioned the transfer of equipment to the Gujarat coast sometime around the 20th of December. The Coast Guard has also, we are told, spotted 2 more Pakistani vessels entering Indian waters in that area. Well, the man in charge is the Coast Guard's Deputy Director General K.R. Nautiyal, and our correspondent Jugal Purohit has spoken to him. Listen in.
I'm now joined by the Deputy Director General of the Coast Guard. Sir, thank you for the time. Tell us, what is this operation all about, and what is it that we were actually looking out for, which is when we intercepted this particular vessel?
Well, gentlemen, there was intelligence input to us which indicated that there is going to be an entity which is suspicious, almost 200 nautical mile, which is almost 350 kilometers into the sea from Porbandar. It was close to a notional IMBL between India and Pakistan. Based on that input, we launched our Dornier aircraft. Dornier aircraft confirmed that yes, there is some entity which is almost matching the description of the intelligence. So our Dornier kept the boat under surveillance. We flew one sortie after another, almost 3 of them, so as to ensure that we keep the boat under constant surveillance. And in the meanwhile, we had asked our surface unit to head for the position, which was almost 200 miles from where our ship was.
From what we understand about this operation, sir, can you tell us what was the kind of threat that we were facing that you have now neutralized?
I would say that based on what has come out, there was intelligence input. There were suspicion of this boat being involved with some kind of illicit kind of act. We had to make sure that we interdict it well before it reaches our shore. Our ship reached at night 23:30, which is 11:30 in the night, found this boat. And thereafter it started doing evasive maneuvers, running away from the ship. It came more into our waters, almost 8 to 9 miles inside our IMBL, and it switched off its light. Our ship did, issue warning. And
so many people are wondering as to, will we ever know what was on board that ship? What were those personnel about to do? What was their mission? Will we ever know this?
I'm sure once we put all the threads connected with the intelligence, with whatever the vessel which were there who undertook this operation, and the Dornier, whatever it saw, once all that is put together, after we have a meeting with all of them, I'm sure a credible image will emerge.
Okay, let's then raise the big questions. We're raising first 5 big questions that are still there as part of this mystery. Was the boat heading for Porbandar planning a 2611 type rerun? That's the obvious question to ask. The other question, was this boat of a Lashkar operation, which we know has been looking at the coastal route as a potential soft target? Will the government treat this Porbandar incident as a Pakistan-backed terror plot? We're still uncertain about that. Will the Porbandar boat blow up, further force coastal security to be stepped up? Will there be a stepping up of coastal security? And will India treat the Porbandar issue as evidence of Pakistani double-speak? Let me get our correspondents who have been tracking this story. Gaurav Sawant, our Strategic Affairs Editor, and Shiv Arora, Deputy Editor, join us to give us a sense of what exactly has happened. Shiv, I'm going to come to you first to tell us exactly the topography of this area. Give us a sense of where this exactly happened today.
Rajdeep, remember, the only thing we have to work with at this point of time is a tantalizingly brief press release from the Ministry of Defence and virtually nothing more. One single press release and 5 photographs is all that we actually have to paint this entire story. Now remember, this is precisely where the government says the operation actually happened, Rajdeep. About 365 kilometers off the coast of Porbandar in Gujarat. That there is Keti Bandar, which is just south of Karachi. It's a place where there are many depots, there are fishing boats that emanate from there as well. 365 kilometers off the coast on the night of December the 31st is where an Indian Coast Guard vessel, ICGS Raj Ratan, actually spotted that fishing boat from Pakistan, which was apparently stationary. Its engines were off and it was completely unlit. No lights were on, nothing was happening. Once the ship, the Indian ship tried to question it, tried to interrogate it, the normal response should have been for it to reply and to identify itself and show in some way that it is submitting and it's willing to actually cooperate and give information to the Indian ship. What it did, in fact, Rajdeep, was switch on its engines and start speeding away towards the Pakistani coast. Now that can only be interpreted one way in such an engagement or a situation, and that is one of hostility. And therefore there was only one way for the Indian Coast Guard to respond, which was to open fire and to give chase. Now there are many questions that actually arise there, because the fishing boat would have been much slower than the Indian Coast Guard vessel, so how could it have been a 1-hour long chase? But I think what we have right now is this scenario where there was a lot of bad weather happening there as well, and this very brief press release. So we'll have to go at least for now, Rajdeep, with the information that the government is putting out.
Okay, so 365 kilometers you're saying off the coast is where this happened, Shiv. I get a sense now of what you're saying. Let me go to Gaurav Sawant also for a moment, because Gaurav, your information is that the intelligence authorities are already treating this as some kind of a foiled terror plot and clearly looking at this as a potential Lashkar operation.
Sources said this was a hostile operation, this was a hostile activity that was taking place, Rajdeep. The information was, it was being tracked right from early December. This was around initially the 15th, then the 20th and the 22nd of December, that some telephones were, calls were intercepted in Karachi. That is where they knew there was a plot that was underway or some kind of activity was underway. There's a lot of coded language in that. Whether this equipment means, what does the equipment mean? We still are waiting for clarity on that. But the information was precise in terms of the boat leaving the KT harbour, it being in the international waters, reaching Indian waters and then waiting to, rendezvous with perhaps an Indian ship. There's no clarity whether that rendezvous happened or not, or was it to happen that night when the interception took place. It was a dark night, choppy seas, it was raining when this operation took place. What we're also being told that this is only a part of the operation that's been completed, because apparently Coast Guard suspects that there still could be 2 more boats, 2 more Pakistani boats in these waters, and they still haven't been intercepted. There are 2 more Coast Guard ships that have now been deployed, Rajdeep. So that bigger picture, the clarity is still not there.
The other question, Gaurav, and is where are those 4 people who are on that boat? The 4 who are they completely, have they no trace of them? Are these boats, 2 other Pakistani boats which have come to this area, come there to look out for these 4 people? Do we have any idea of where those crew members have gone?
This happened post-midnight, Rajdeep. In fact, the boat sank finally around 6:40 in the morning on the 1st. The interception started around a little before midnight. So this operation, this entire process of interception, tracking, interception started around midnight. Around 3:30 the boat caught fire. Around 4 it was burning completely. That was the time perhaps they went down with the boat. There is still no clarity because there were no other boats in that area at that point of time. This information was developed either subsequently or made public subsequently about 2 other Pakistani boats close to Porbandar. Let me also tell you, Rajdeep, that our sources in the government are telling us that there was a very clear instruction from the government that every Pakistani boat should be treated as hostile in Indian waters at this point of time, and that is because of the Al-Qaeda attempt to take over a Pakistan Navy ship. So post that, every boat, the Navy and the merchant vessels keep a safer distance and they're treated as hostiles, Rajdeep.
Okay. We'll come back to you for much more, Gaurav Sawant and Shiv Arur, who've been giving us all that information. Appreciate your joining us, Gaurav. I want to raise the big question then. Is coastal security still vulnerable to a 26/11-like terror attack? Is that an area of vulnerability? That's what I want to raise at the moment. I'm joined by special guests. Joining me in the studios, G. Parthasarthi, former High Commissioner and someone who looks at strategic issues very carefully. Also joining me, General Ashok Mehta. Major General Ashok Mehta joins us. Also joining me are people from the world of Navy. Commodore C. Uday Bhaskar, former Director of the National Maritime Foundation, is with us. And to get an intelligence perspective, Jaidev Ranade, former Additional Secretary in the Research and Analysis Wing, is with us. I want to get each of you first to give us a sense of what your first impressions of what has happened. Mr. Parthasarthi, information is sketchy. As Shiv was saying, there's just one line that's come from the Defence Ministry. It's almost as if the government doesn't want to say too much too soon, which is perhaps understandable. But given what has happened, is your sense that a possible coastal city like Mumbai, like Goa, or any town in Gujarat or a naval base around the west coast was the target? Do you see similarities prima facie between what seems to have happened and what was happening in the prelude to 26/11?
Let's go into what has happened.
Yes.
1993.
Yes.
Dawood Ibrahim was used and his gang were the Indian associates used. You did not have Pakistanis landing. I think we found later on that the shipments went to the...
They used the entire underworld network along the Mumbai
But the
coastline.
shipments of AK-56 rifles, explosives, went to the Shekhadi coast of the Raigad district.
Yes.
They were picked up there. So the modus operandi was using coastal vulnerabilities and local assets.
Yes.
26/11 was totally different. They did something which to my mind was idiotic. Sent in 10 Pakistani nationals in a boat sold by the Japanese, whose sale to the Pakistanis was very easily discovered by us. So if they're going to do something, they'll be more careful. It will not be that sort of foul up. So I do not rule out the possibility that this was, yes, a shipment of explosives and what else, like you had in 1993, shipped to being destined to people they feel within India whom they could use.
So that's the difference between 26/11 and what you suspect has happened. This is an operation primarily of people being used as couriers to provide equipment, possibly arms and ammunition, to a group within this country.
To Indian assets.
To Indian assets.
Yes.
Okay. You know, that's interesting, because Major General Mehta, I was hearing you earlier on our program and you were saying that you were not clear and you suspected this was not anything linked to terror. I mean, because prima facie this looks like someone who was determined to stir mischief along the Indian coastline. That's prima facie what we have at the moment. There is a mystery, but that's prima facie.
You know, we should look at it in the light of what we've done recently. And your question was, has our coastal security improved? The answer to that is an emphatic yes. You have a centralized monitoring system in Gurgaon. You have a defense of Gujurat exercise held last month. So I cannot imagine why anybody should be so stupid to come and try the same coastal route all over again. But assuming, as he says, that Pakistanis, some of these guys are quite stupid, they've done it. Now
hold on, because Commodore Uday Bhaskar is with us. I just want to get this coastal security.
May I add one thing on coastal security?
Yes.
Because I dealt with it in the narration committee. I agree with the General. Since 2008, much has been done. But remember, coastal security is very complicated. It also involves state governments.
No, my point, I know you're saying that much has been done since 2008, but Commodore Bhaskar, I was speaking to R.D. Pradhan, who was heading the report into 26/11, and he said that he didn't believe enough had been done, that there were still plenty of points along that long western coastline which were porous. Do you therefore believe that the coastal security is still the vulnerable route, assuming that the Pakistanis believe that they could use the same route?
Rajdeep, on this specific issue, as an analyst, I would make the case that the manner in which this suspicious vessel was identified, engaged, and then resulted in a self-explosion is an indicator of a much healthier overall ecosystem as far as India's coastal surveillance. and the ability to generate data, convert it into appropriate information and actionable intelligence is a positive development.
So you see something positive. You see a positive spin to the fact that we were able to identify this boat.
Positive development, and I don't want to get into the Pakistan thing just now.
Yes. Unless
these vessels come back and we have evidence to suggest that this has specific linkages. At the moment, that press release was very appropriate. It spoke about an illicit vessel. Suspicious activity did not stop when it was engaged, and when the Coast Guard tried to close in, you saw that it went into a self-explosion. Even the suggestion that why did it take 1 hour, etc., I think is not a valid question. Ships at that time of the night and whatever be the weather conditions may have been doing something like about 15 knots, plus minus. So if they had visual contact, they had air assets providing intelligence, this was a very, very, I would say, commendable operation by the Coast Guard. And I think we should acknowledge that, as also the ability to get the intelligence alert in advance and identify this vessel. So it's like a needle in a haystack. We've done well. Will we do it again is really a question mark, but it does point to the vulnerability at sea and the need to have constant vigil and improve our maritime domain awareness.
Are there still gaps? Are there still gaps, you believe, along the coastline? Are there still gaps along the coastline that make it vulnerable?
There are gaps.
There are gaps. But
there are gaps, Rajdeep.
But you're saying that you've seen a positive from the fact that the Coast Guard was able to intercept, in a sense, what was happening. Because Jaidev Ranade, according to top sources to headlines today, the NTRO chanced upon a conversation emanating from Karachi. It spoke about transferring vital equipment to receivers on the western coast of India. The person on the phone also boasted that the cost of each equipment ran into lakhs of rupees. Do you believe that the intelligence that is available at the moment does suggest a potential 2611-like operation?
Well, I don't know about 2611 type of operation. There could be 2 or 3 scenarios at play here. But the facts as we know them today are certainly that there was some suspicious activity which was picked up by our intelligence agencies. They monitored it for a sustained length of time, thereby confirming that there was illegitimate activity or illicit activity of a suspicious nature. I also see that there were claims of some telephone conversations having been intercepted emanating out of Karachi, which certainly points to terror links, but we'll have to wait and see. The manner in which the Defense Ministry statement has been released, to my mind, suggests that the intelligence agencies have more information with them, and perhaps they're also tracking some more things, and we'll have to wait till all that comes out.
Okay, so you don't want to hasten to judgment. You don't want to hasten to judgment that this was a terror attack. But let me point out some coincidences, Mr. Parthasarathy. It happens the day 31st December when India pounds Pakistani Rangers along the international border. Allegedly 4 of their Jawans have been killed. There have been attempts made by the Pakistanis for more infiltration bids across the international border. It happens just a few days after the fact is that the Jamaat-ud Dawa of Hafiz Saeed held a 2-day-long congregation in the port city of Karachi where he addressed students, spewed venom against India. Do you see something in the air which suggests that this is part of some kind of a strategy to once again ratchet up the pressure on the international border, possibly along the seas, as you said, possibly to provide this arms and ammunition to potential Indian assets along the coastline?
Look, Pakistan will, given its concentration on its western borders, would be foolish to have its citizens come and implement something like 2611. But Pakistan has not given up the use of terrorism as an instrument of state policy.
Are you seeing a ratcheting up of that in the last few weeks? Given what has happened on the international border?
It is a continuing phenomenon. Let's not forget one thing, Rajdeep, and I keep repeating this. Now, let's not forget 1993 was executed by Nawaz Sharif and is chosen director of the ISI at that point in time. Now, we seem to forget these things. Nawaz has very close links with all these extremist Wahhabi groups, particularly in Punjab. And there is no reason, and talking to the Afghans also, they also believe this. So let us,
Are you saying that Nawaz Sharif could be using these extremist elements to try and deflect some of the heat which is on him?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm merely saying that he would be less opposed to this sort of thing run by the deep state, as it is called, than Mr. Zardari would have been. The fact of the matter is that the use of terrorism as an instrument of state policy against India is continuing, will continue till the costs are made too high for Pakistan. This, as I said, could well be taking something to some coastal, but the use would be, I'm very clear, of Indian assets, not the foolishness of.
You believe that it is the use of Indian assets, not a replica in that sense. If it is at all,
I'm not arriving at a final judgment.
Yeah, I take that because this is a story that is still developing. As we said, there is very little information coming. But the fact is that Karachi has been seen as in a sense the citadel
of the Bhattal brothers have been there.
That's right. So given that the maritime route,
and one of them is still there.
Given that the maritime route from Karachi towards Mumbai, towards the Porbandar has been seen as possibly the best way to supply arms and ammunition to potential Indian assets, which is why questions will be raised.
Yeah, but this is, if you look at it strategically, we have discussed, what we have talked so far is tactical. Partha is talking about 1993, Nawaz Sharif in his first avatar. We are talking about Nawaz Sharif 2015 post-Peshawar in his third avatar.
You believe there's a change?
I'm not saying that you will see the change 15 days after Peshawar. But the fact is that he made statements that have not been made in Pakistan before. Firstly, he's removed the distinction between good and bad. Number two, he's talked about, and not for the first time, non-use of Pakistani soil. Number three, he's talked about eliminating terrorist root and branch. So let us give this guy a chance. Now to say that the movement or the activity on the line of control has increased, separate strategic rationale. Infiltration is required to be done because this year the snow on the passes is not so great to prevent infiltration.
I am only quoting.
No. Just let me finish. So I haven't finished. So the point I am making is that let us not jump to any conclusions. It will be very foolish on the part of the Pakistanis after Peshawar, especially after India made those tremendous gestures post-Peshawar, for Pakistan to be officially linked with any terrorist.
I am not suggesting that, but it seems a little strange that a boat explodes in the high seas.
No, but if you light a fire if you light a boat to the fire, who knows? The Coast Guard may have fired at them.
Listen, I've listened to General Ashok Mehta. The fact of the matter is, everything that Nawaz Sharif said is questionable. Even the Afghans are questioning it. He is acting exclusively against the Tehreek-e-Taliban. I know for a fact, everyone knows for a fact, it's appearing in the Pakistani press. The Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, his favorite anti-Shia group, the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaimat-ud-Dawa, left untouched. Afghan Taliban, Mullah Omar has moved to Karachi and a new leadership has come into Quetta. None of them are going to be touched.
Partha,
good terrorists, bad terrorists.
Hold on. Let me bring in Mr. Ranade, because I want to look at the intelligence dimension of this. It is clear that this was a joint Coast Guard intelligence operation. On 3rd December last year, Navy Chief Admiral R.K. Dhawan says, we have inputs that certain aspects of terrorism in the maritime domain is increasing. They've been taken into account in our security matrix. Do you believe that this is, the question I asked Commodore Uday Bhaskar as well, a potentially vulnerable area for terrorists to exploit, i.e. maritime security, or do you believe post 2611 that is not the case?
Well, I'd say in a short, let me put it quite shortly, there's much more to be done. Till then the coastline is vulnerable. A lot has been done, one is not denying that, but much more needs to be done, and I think until and unless we expand our surveillance capabilities, we will remain vulnerable. That's the short answer.
That's the short answer, but what I really want to know from you is, do you subscribe to the theory that Major General Mehta is putting out, that maybe the Coast Guard itself engaged in an operation of hot pursuit and blew up this ship. Is that at all possible? And 24 hours later, we are told that the ship has self-exploded.
No, I don't think so. There is enough, even from what we know, there is enough evidence that this vessel was engaged in very suspicious activity. The intercepts point to the fact that they were up to, mischief, as it were. And indications are, as they were headed to our coast, either it was to dump weaponry, explosives, etc., or it was to offload people. One doesn't know what it was.
Right.
But certainly it was not an innocent contraband transaction that was going to take place on the seas.
Why should a Coast Guard ship with speeds 4 times those of those fishing vessels take 1 hour to take, and they were chasing them for 1 hour? So why is it not possible for the Coast Guard ship to fire at the ship, cause fire, and then it blew up?
There is an element of mystery.
We don't know.
We don't know. However, given what has happened in the past, given as Parthasarathy, you said 1993, the entire Mumbai blast and Dawood Ibrahim using the entire underworld network to land to land RDX on the coast. Given what we had in 2611, when Pakistan went a step further and sent its own men to the coast, do you believe that Pakistan does believe that it can continue, in a sense, to carry out these kind of operations? Which is why the suspicion is always there when an incident like this happens, that there could be a Lashkar hand involved.
Let me put it this way. I'm not going to pass judgment on this incident till we get more conclusive evidence, as General Mehta says.
Yes.
But we'd be very naive, stupid to rule out the fact that Pakistan is involved. Pakistanis are involved, let me be very clear, from Karachi, given the type of boat and given the sort of information which all our intelligence agencies are giving. So I will give them credit for that. I agree with Jaydev Ranade that much more needs to be done. I have handled it to get our coastal defenses in order, and particularly get the civilian setups to become much more active.
Because there are lots of points along the western coast which are still unmanned.
No, you can't. Even the US can't man the entire Atlantic coast.
Yes.
But you'll have to look at points of vulnerability and likely infiltration and deal with it. But one last point.
Yes.